Emma-Jane Kirby, BBC News, Paris.
Some very sad news to bring you that's just coming into us. The BBC sports commentator Harry Carpenter has died at the age of 84. He began broadcasting from the early 1950s until he retired in 1994. I'm sure many of you will remember he was presenter of programmes like Sportsnight in the 70s and 80s and Grandstand. Most famous for his boxing commentaries, but also the boat race, Wimbledon, golf tournaments, and of course that famous interchange with the boxer Frank Bruno, Carpenter and Frank Bruno, whose catchphrase very quickly became "Know what I mean, Harry," and that's him with Muhammad Ali, but it was with Frank Bruno that he had that extraordinary rapport.
Yes, boxing his first love, but of course he had an interest in so many sports. Andy Swiss takes a look back now at the career of a legendary sports commentator.
He's got him. Erskine down in round 12.
For half a century, Harry Carpenter described the greatest fights of the age. He covered his first World Heavyweight Championship in 1955, when the fearsome Rocky Marciano destroyed Britain's Don Cockle.
Yes, the first punch he hit me high on the cheekbone.
During his career, he met and interviewed all the great fighters and became friends with many of them.
I like to say that you're not as dumb as you look, Harry.
Even the fiercest heavyweight of all.
Always glad to see you. You're a very nice man.
And he turned Britain's Frank Bruno into a folk hero.
I didn't think I would see you again, Harry. You know what I mean? I thought you retired from the show, but
No, you got it all wrong.
A former print journalist, he was a television natural, completely unflappable, even when things fell apart.
We can't show you that race, but let's see if we have anything. I haven't any other news to give you, I'm afraid, so let's hear from upstairs what we're going to do. I'm in touch here on my deaf aid with the control gallery, and everybody up there, I can tell, is in a fair old panic right at this moment. The first man we're going to look at is the great Arnold Palmer.
It was not just boxing. He fronted the coverage of the Open golf tournament for years, and he was equally at home at Wimbledon, or as here, presenting the boat race.
It really is like being in a rocket.
Not content just to watch from the sidelines, he was always happy to take part in the action himself.
Oh, I thought we were going to hit that tree on the left.
But boxing was his first love. He covered every Olympic Games between 1956 and 1992, describing both the highs and the lows.
And that, in my opinion, makes an absolute farce of this Olympic tournament. This judging is outrageous.
He won numerous awards for his contribution to sport, but his greatest pleasure was being ringside, sharing his love of boxing with viewers across the world.
Oh my God, he's won the title back at 32!
Harry Carpenter, whose death has been announced at the age of 84. Let's talk to our sports correspondent, Joe Wilson. Joe, I remember growing up watching Sports Night on a Wednesday night with Harry. I mean, he really was the voice of BBC Sport in particular, wasn't
Absolutely, yeah. Sports Night, I think, is probably where I remember him from as well, which he presented, from the mid-70s up until the mid-80s. But, I mean, he was generally referred to as the voice of boxing. You know, and there are not many commentators who get that kind of accolade. Maybe Bill McLaren also died recently. People refer to him as a voice of rugby. And you've got to remember when Harry Carpenter was boxing correspondent with the BBC from 1962 until 1994. For a lot of that time, boxing was a really big sport, a lot higher profile than it is now, less fragmented. You know, world champions, even British champions, were huge names, huge stars, and it's his voice describing that action which runs through your mind when you remember some of those fights. I mean, some of the turns of phrases, the one that we heard there, 1974, I think I was 2 when that happened, but still somehow I remember it when he said, oh my God, he's won the title back at 32. Other ones as well, when the title fight bit with Frank Bruno. Go on, get in there, Frank. You know, somehow he had the right phrase for the right moment, and he set really the standard, I think, for a lot who followed him.
But also, very briefly, Joe, other sports too. You know, the boat race, even greyhound racing. I think he commentated on.
Greyhound racing, which again was a lot bigger deal in the 60s, perhaps at Wimbledon as well, which he was involved in right up until 1993. I think Sports Personality of the Year. He again was one of those faces and one of those voices that you came to expect at that annual event. And as I said, I think he almost set the standard. He was in right from the start and has defined a lot of the standards for all that have followed him in sports broadcasting.
All right, Joe, thank you very much indeed. Joe Wilson.
Now, just a